Anahuac. Heidi and Amy spent a good part of their summer teaching in Mexico and are going to talk about that experience and how maybe we can have a similar experience teaching abroad for free, right? This is paid, okay? You
Well,
got paid.
semi. I'll
Okay.
talk about that too.
Yeah. Yay. All right, so if the food comes, I'll get up and I'll shut the doors. All right, Amy and I.
So hi, everybody. I wanted to, first question is where did we go? Mexico is a pretty big place. Amy and I had a lot of fun. I was very grateful for her to help me out with this because I taught a class in their psychology department, which is a clinical psychology program, and I am not clinical. So we sort of team taught this, and it was called an early stimulation class for 0 to 4-year-olds. And so a good chunk of what I did was I gave the developmental background, and she did the intervention piece. She helped me out. She was there for about a week, 5-7 classes or so. And so where is Anahuac? I went to Puebla, Mexico. I was there the year before setting this up. I went with other people from West Virginia faculty the year before, and they were COIL people, and I was there, not a COIL person. I became a COIL person, and I went there a year before and set up this particular class. And here's Puebla right here. I have a little pointer, but that's Puebla. No, it's down here, sorry. I can't see very well, but that's where it is. It's not by any water. I brought my 15-year-old daughter with me, and she got something to say on her first day of school, and then the teacher was like, well, why are you so white still? Aren't you tan? Because she wasn't near any water. And there's a lot of mountains there. This is the next picture, but there's like 4 million people. I need my glasses again to study this. But if you see the thing on Puebla up there is about 4 million people there. It's a city, pretty much. I got around by Uber, pretty much. You can go into town, you teach, you go in, and good food, really good food. That's where it is. They promote themselves very, very well. There's an A everywhere, and they have the full name, Anahuac. There's volcanoes, and that's after a raging thunderstorm the night before where it's smoking. Oftentimes it would just be calm, there wouldn't be clouds around it. But this was building 3. They number their buildings. They don't have names after them. So the latest building was building 4. And then building 4 does not have an elevator. The psychology department was on the 4th floor. First time I did that, I thought I was going to die, high altitude and all that. After a while, I got used to it. My daughter would not climb it at all. And then building number 1 had admissions. Building number 2 is where we taught the class. 3 was this was 3, and that had the business. They also had a couple of events in there. And then 4 was the newer one, and that had the psychology department. They're in the works, planning stage is building 5. So they are growing. There's about, I think, 1,100 students on this campus. So Puebla is not the main campus, Mexico City is. That sheet has a little information that they put out. She gave me a bunch of gifts, so that was on this thing, which thumb drive for 2014 when we had the 50th anniversary. This is my room. I stayed at the dorms. So that was this was over here was my side of that. This was one room, so that was the bed. That was my desk. This was on either side. This was the shower over here. This was the toilet, and this was the funky sink. This really was a sink. You lift this up, and the water would work, and it would just flow in the back. Kind of funky. If you turn on too fast, you all got sprayed. So I stayed in the dorms, and then there was a place to cook. So this was a hot stove top here, 2 refrigerators. We didn't need all that. We just used 1, usually just to conserve. And then the couch, we would just sit on the couch to eat. There wasn't any table or anything. And this was the trash was over there, but storage space, microwave up there. We didn't use all that. I bought 1 pan from Walmart to cook, and then I bequeathed it to the next person who comes, or whoever comes over next time.
Walmart's directly across the street.
You put your life in your hands, walk to Walmart. It's definitely busy, but there's a Walmart, there's a Pizza Hut, and a Subway, a few other stores. But I would not do anything American. We ate the Pizza Hut, I think, the first weekend we were there, because everything's closed on Sunday. So I think was it Pizza Hut? Yes, I think it was Pizza Hut. It's the only time I did an American restaurant. Everything was closed. But other than that, I didn't do everything I did non-American local chains.
Speaking of which, Domino's is coming to the rescue in a half hour. I'm sorry, the catering just spaced this one, but we have food coming. So speaking of Pizza Hut, it'll be here in a half hour.
So this was my class. I had 7 students. They were all females. They were a good group of students. Culturally, they love to talk. So it's not like you walk in and you start having a lecture and they'll look at you like you're in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's not like that. They definitely engage in the conversation. And they're very interested in learning about all culture, and I was interested in sharing ours. So they shared mine and I shared them. We'll get to that in a minute. I love this picture of Amy's daughter. She's really thrilled to be there. Mine is in the back. They took us into town to say goodbye to Amy because this was her last day in teaching, so they wanted to say goodbye, so we went into town to the Parisian artists section of Pueblo. Oh, fun facts. See, what I want to do is I wanted to learn about their culture and have a cultural exchange. That was my part. How do I get out of the, wait. How do I,
Are you trying to do escape?
Yeah, she wants to go to it.
I want to go, where's escape? Okay, so where I want to go is Compliments from Heidi. Yeah, but I want to go this. Okay, I introduced fun facts. So we started out in the beginning. I want to do a cultural exchange. So about 10 minutes, 15 minutes every class, I said we're going to do a cultural exchange. So it started out with facts. We put limon, we call it limon, with lime on everything. And boy, do they ever. And they like their food spicy, and that is very true. And then we got down to they have 365 churches. They have a church everywhere, and they have celebrate a saint every day. You'll see that they have a celebration. Usually, something will come back from a celebration or something. So these were some of their facts. And we would spend a few minutes every time doing an exchange. I would tell them something about our culture. They would tell me something about theirs. We talked about certain things, and you know that Mexico City is shrinking. It's built on a lake, so it's shrinking 2 to 8 inches every day or every year, something. I think it's every year. That's a fun fact. They talked about this. The people who they talked about the beggars that irritate them, and it's true. There's these people who park your car, and they would talk about. They have this phrase, beanie, and they would talk about how it irritated them. But they would say, "I think I'm gonna go park cars today." They put on a uniform and they go in and help you park your car. And they would explain, and you would experience that, and they would get. They had irritation when they would talk about it usually, and even after your car's parked, then you had to expect the expectations that you would give them coins. And the baggers in Walmart, you had to give them coins as well. Poverty is very extreme, and they had people who were homeless and families and children and toddlers and babies on the street, and they without their blankets at night. Something that was difficult for us. We usually have a safety net for children, but they didn't have any safety net. So these were some facts. I wrote down all their facts. Oh, the lunchtime and the meals are definitely different because we go to lunch at like noon or 1. The cafe was empty, but by 3 o'clock it was pretty packed. You know, we had different stomach timetables. And how they did their names, it helped me out a lot because I didn't understand all their names. And so the mom's name, this was their given name. This came from their dad, and that was their mom. So this was the male's name. And so when they got married, they would give their child the first name. This would come from the father's, and then that would be the mother's. And then when they got married, the female would have this name, and it would drop. It would be of the Alberto family, but they would drop the last name. So mom's side would get dropped. They explained how the names worked. That explained to me a lot how things went. But as we got further down, we exchanged less about facts. We exchanged some culture. Food was always big. And there was one student, Shio. She was very hilarious. She was very expressive. And so she was very dramatic. And she would say, "Oh, it's delicious." And she would like lick her lips. And she would describe a food dish. And then there was one where I also found out I was rude in my emails. So that's something to be very aware of because they are you have to say dear, and then, good morning, and then some greeting. And I wasn't, in the end, it's like here's like when they send you an email, like, oh, that's fine. And then they would explain to me, I thought your emails were rude. And they're like, they would get very dramatic on it. So you have to say, dear so-and-so, good morning, good afternoon. Yes, I think that would be fine. I hope you have a wonderful day. But you can't be so direct because that was very harsh for them. And I found out, so now I have a habit now. So emails would take 20 minutes as opposed to my 7-second ones. So I wrote down all that they would say. Then towards the back end, the ones that they talk about justice system, written exam, how their degrees work. They had to take examinations when they graduated. And then if they didn't pass that, they had a second chance. If they didn't pass that, they had to pay money. And then after that, they would get a different kind of degree. And then public versus private schools. When I was there the first time, it was a huge demonstration. And come to find out, they had to do with there was that you inherited. If you worked in the public school system and you left that job, you could bequeath it to your relative. You didn't have to have a degree or anything. And then they changed that, and so there was a big protest last year when I was there. That was that protest, but that's what that was about. It was huge. There was some anger around that. And then they explained what that was about. So we worry about shootings on college campuses. They worry about kidnappings. And it is Fort Knox. Security is tight, so there's never a concern about safety. There's a security guard, like six of them in the front. In the dorms, there's a male and a female. You do not walk down the hallway that says that they're different males and female, and vice versa. They're right there. And they're very pleasant, they're very professional, very helpful. They do not speak English. So I had my dictionary and we point to things when things got sticky. But they're very kind, and at nighttime, everything gated, like big on gates. So I did that to exchange. I learned a lot. That's how I learned a lot about many of the things. There was one other person there from Montana, Billings, Montana, Scott Harris, Dr. Scott Harris. He was teaching in the business department, and we would exchange some things. Talk a little bit, but most of the time I didn't see him. Thank you. Okay, helpful links from writing. So if you want to do this, so the course was 5 weeks, and doing grading, you would work with the departments whose grading system is very different. They have very little flexibility, so you work with them on how to do all that and input the grade, so you work with that department on that. I could never figure it out, so I just sat with them. 100 points total, no flexibility on that. Work with Yin, who studied abroad. He started a year early to get all the paperwork going. 5 students from, I think I have that later on, but 5 students from Shepherd or West Virginia as a whole, I think we're working on making it West Virginia, would make a class as it would any place else. Then you would get paid as a regular class. I didn't have that, but you still would get a stipend. If you get a stipend $40 a day from Ana Luisa. And their food is very cheap there. Eat at the cafe, for me and Mabel, it was $5 per day. We only ate once a day. And then we would have Walmart snacks and, have meals at home. So, and that was, I would go for supplies. It was like $25 to buy what we needed there. It's really economically low cost to go to be there. So you came back with plenty of money to go souvenirs. And then I went on some trips there. They had some students coming from California, and they had trips here and there, and they had extra seats on the bus, so I would go. And I went to, what is that town? Outside of Mexico City, City of Gods. What's that? Tepehuala. What is it? What is that? City of the Gods with all the pyramids. Here's what it's called. Use the T. I don't know, but it was a Charlton Heston movie for me. Felt like there should be an orchestra with gongs.
Teotihuacan or something?
Yeah.
It ends in an N. Okay. It's
That's the old name of Mexico City.
It is beautiful. It was the highlight of my trip because it was like all these pyramids 5,000 years old sitting there. I just felt like Charlton Heston. I was behind him on a chariot with fire torches everywhere. And you're just surrounded by these things that are 5,000 years old and all that. It was just the highlight of the trip. It was really wonderful. So you want to start a year out and start advertising and get into organized if you want to do it. And work with them. Lisa, what department you want to teach and what class you want to teach. There tells the departments on that piece of paper that I handed out to you, and organize that with Anna Lisa and the department. There are some documents that she'll need from you, which is most of the stuff is very easy to do last minute. Passport, you actually have to your passport, whatever it is that you need. But she needs the bank, your birth certificate that you can just scan and send off to her, copy of your degree, some bank forms you need to fill out with you and your bank for the transfer of the funds. But this one takes a bit, 4 to 6 weeks. She needs a taxpayer residency form that you have to write to the IRS, which costs $85, and then they send you the form that you need to send someplace else. It kind of gets complicated. So you need a long lead time, that's what I'm looking for. So you need this U.S. residency certificate, which you have to get from the ICE, and you have to apply to get it, and it takes a while. I got it while I was in Mexico, and she was okay with that as long as my husband then sent it while I was there, and that was fine, as long as they get it before I leave. But it was 4 to 6 weeks, and it takes costs $85 to request to have this form. I talked about this already. So you get paid for the class, you have to have students from here, and you get paid for a class. I think it's five students for the summer. So if you have that, then you get paid for a class.
Who's paying you?
The stipend comes from Anahuac, but if you want to get paid for a class, then it's Shepherd.
Okay. And you have to recruit your own 5 students.
So I only got paid stipend, because I taught them. And they want the class to be taught in English to improve their English skills.
So would they have some of their students
Oh,
in
yeah.
STEM as well?
I taught their class. You bring your students into your class.
Okay.
I evaluated my class, something to think about, and I added some questions that Lois, so you helped me with the questions about, I wanted to evaluate culture, was I culturally sensitive, what did they think about my sensitivity to being in another culture, and I also evaluated, did they think their English skills improved in written and in writing. So think about course evaluation, so I used the Shepherd course evaluation, and then I added these questions, because I wanted to see what they thought.
What is the cost for the Shepherd students to do that?
That's all, that, you have to coordinate all that, that's the
Yeah,
question.
Shepherd students, when they go to Anahuac, they will pay Shepherd tuition.
Okay. What about travel costs and stuff?
The travel, that will have to be decided by you.
But we got the numbers for, if we were to bring students on Heidi's trip last year, it was about $2,000 for the students to go, be there for the 6 weeks. They would stay in the dorms. I believe that they worked out like a meal a day that was included in that.
Yes.
Also cooking classes, salsa lessons,
And cultural events.
and cultural events.
Yeah, and Annalise will do all that.
So it would be tuition and then the $2,000, which is pretty, it was a pretty decent price to pay for students.
I think I have English proposal that if you are interested, I can send you.
Thank you.
And Annalisa works hard, I mean, she'll work hard to do stuff with them. Other thing is, get your Mexico pesos, whatever your bank. My bank will do it in 24 to 48 hours, but you gotta order them ahead of time. It's a cash-only society pretty much. It's a credit card, but not too much. My credit cards did not work at all at Walmart, and that kind of freaked me out. But Anahuac has a ATM machine right on campus, so I had all chips in my credit cards, and the Walmart was like, none of that's gonna work, they're just looking at me. So it's really a cash-only society, and small bills. So don't get anything. I had my bank give me $1,000 peso. That was like, that should have been like a $1,000 bill trying to give that to a taxi driver here and here. It was not gonna work. Just I wouldn't bring anything over 200 peso. That would be my advice to you guys.
And if I might make a suggestion, I never exchange American dollars for money in the other currencies here in the United States. There are always ATMs at the airports and you get the best rate of exchange. So you pay a premium by having it converted here in the United States. You get more bang for your buck if you can wait till you get to the airport and go to an airport ATM.
Another helpful hint is if Charles Schwab, you can get a bank card with them through a checking account, and you can use it almost anywhere in the world. And they're amazing because you can go to the ATMs in Mexico, and if your bank usually would charge you, right, like $25 or at least $3 if you're in the United States for you to withdraw from another bank account, they charge none of that. If the other bank charges you, they reimburse you. So I know, is that like the best thing ever? So you just have to go online and open up a Charles Schwab checking account. They'll send you a little card, and you can use that all through Mexico, Central America.
So, I mean, I had some cash with me, and then I used the ATM that was on campus and just took money out that way. It's not, the cost in Mexico is super low to do anything. I mean, it's just relatively inexpensive. Download the Uber app before you leave the United States. I did it when I was over there last year. Now everything is in Spanish. I get these emails in Spanish. I would just do it before you leave the United States. You never know the Wi-Fi when you try to do it when you're over there. And Uber is how you get around. It's safer and the taxis are more expensive. Uber is it. It's just how you do it. And me, who is no techno guru at all, and that's how I got around. I impressed my husband. And then something happened and I couldn't figure out the maps forever, so Mabel took over and she helped me out. She's way better technologically speaking, but we ran into a couple of glitches, but still Uber is the way to go. Don't overpack. Trust me on that one. You're gonna teach, you bring 5 outfits and you just jumble them up and you're gonna hate the outfits by the end of the 5 weeks and who cares? Just keep it simple. I wouldn't wear dresses because that's only one and you can't show that, just kept, on top and the bottom and that's it, and jumble them up. Don't overpack, you only need 1 outfit for the week. You can wear the same things. The laundry is on the floor, ground floor. They were redoing them when I was there, so it's nicer. And you only need like a pair of jeans and a couple of t-shirts or something, then you just wash, do laundry, it's free. You just have to buy your own detergent. And then it leaves room for all of the souvenirs you're gonna buy. And I had lots of coffee I brought back, and it was coffee-scented suitcase. Pack an umbrella, because it rains every day there. At some point, you're up there in the mountains, and it's usually thunderstorms like any mountain, usually region. There's usually a thunderstorm every day. It did not often rain maybe once all day long, but that was rare. Bring gifts for Ana Luisa and whoever is your department chair, because they are generous in the gifts to me. I had a coffee travel cup. They gave me a water thing. They gave me this. They have me this. I have pens. I gave me a notebook. I got this bag, which I used all the time. That's how I took my folders and whatever. I got this. They gave Mabel stuff too. And I have another bag. This is a backpack kind of thing. This was my apron I got. She's going to talk about community service, but I got an apron for my community service. So they are warm and generous and kind. You cannot be afraid of affection because their greetings are kiss, kiss, hug, hug. And at first you could see they were like, oh, Porter, they did. And I'm like, hey, and I did the kiss, kiss, hug, hug. It's kiss, kiss, hug, hug, hello, and goodbye. That's just the way it is. Expect it. But I brought them umbrellas and a shepherd umbrella and a shepherd mug. If we all bring them, they'll have galore, but they use them. And Ana Luisa picked me up at the airport, and that's what she used. She forgot her umbrella, so she escorted us to the car with those umbrellas that I had brought her out of my suitcase.
If you guys need swag, just give me a call. So I have connections with the foundation and admissions. So there could be some neat things, little things that you can take like pens, visors, the cell phone cover thing for your ID card, with all kinds of little things that post-it pads. So just let me know and we'll help get you some swag.
What was the last thing? Oh, book your tickets early. It gets best rate and a better seat. That would be my other advice is to book your tickets early. Good rate for a shepherd, but also you get better seats if you do it early because waiting the last minute, you'll be sitting in lawn or back row.
That's like the reserved space for my family. All right. The one right next to the bathroom. So the community service piece of this is I was originally putting together a course on international community service learning. And we had worked everything out a couple times with my partner in Anahuac, whose name is Pepe. And it didn't end up going last year because we just didn't have enough time. We are going this year, and our dates are looking like they're going to be like the 14th to 26th of May. And what we're doing with International Community Service Learning, this was an example. This was an event they had put together for our class, but our class didn't come. So you're not going to go to a community and say, I'm going to do an event in your community and then not show up because the gringos didn't come, right? So we went anyway, and we invited Heidi and Mabel, and this event here is what they call a disco sopa. And the disco sopa is, we go to one of the local pueblos, and there's a whole movement. They call it the slow food movement. We have it here in the United States as well, where they're really trying to cut back on food waste, and they're trying to show people how to incorporate it into their meals and make more out of it. So this was the chef here. Do you remember his name?
Bruno.
Bruno.
Chef Bruno.
Yeah, Chef Bruno. So that was Chef Bruno, and he's from the culinary arts piece or department of the
He's in charge
university.
of the culinary program.
And they call it Disco Sofa because they have people come and sing, and we have like, it's not really DJ, but like the big speakers are set up. So, there's kind of like a community party that's going on, and we washed more dishes
Oh my God.
in one day than I think I've had to wash in my entire life combined. But it was a lot of fun. It's a free event to the community. You can see the fellas over here.
It was a motorcycle gang.
It was a motorcycle gang
showed up.
that came, and they were helping us to set everything up, and they were serving food, and it was really a good way to get to know people in the community, to interact with people. They made some amazing potato soup, but it was on fire. They told us, they were like, you guys don't have to eat it. We're like, it's and it was really good, but it was really hot. And but they made a couple different things there. I was really impressed with it, with what they had, and it gave us the opportunity to kind of get. And this was in Switzerland, which was one of my other partners, her hometown. So she brought people that she knew and were her relatives, and it was just a really good opportunity to work with some of the students and staff from Anahuac and build those relationships, and get to be able to meet people in the pueblos. We met a chick from Austin, Texas, or somewhere.
Oh yeah, she married one of the motorcycle gang members, and she was talking to me in Texas.
Yeah, so he was like, my wife is from the States, and it's amazing. I feel like everybody speaks English there, and really you don't have to have Spanish to navigate, because most people I met know more of the United States than me. They've been here before, and they've worked in various places, and they speak really good English. So there's not as much of a problem with language.
There's her eating fire soup right there.
Yeah, I was on fire. But you can see, this is how we wash the dishes. They brought in water bottles. At one point, we ran out of water to wash the dishes, so the motorcycle guys loaded up a truck and took it and refilled the water bottles enough for us to be able to finish.
The town had no water. They had a water problem, so they had to ship all the water in. There's no bathroom, so they had to.
Yeah, so it was you run into your challenges, but that's what makes for really interesting and good stories later on. So I'm gonna put on, if I can, I'm just gonna let this roll a little bit. Okay, so just so that you guys can see a little bit of where we work, because it's such an amazing area. I mean, when they told me, here we go. So I can make a slideshow. Right? Oh. Okay. Does anybody else know if there's words automatically? Okay, so this is Puebla. It's in the cultural center. But when they told me I could go to my daughter's, that doesn't have stank face there. Isn't that better? Right? But when they told me I could go to Mexico, I'm sorry. I was like, I don't need to go to Mexico because I live in Martinsburg, and there's half of our Latino population, more than half, the majority of our Latino population in Martinsburg is Mexican. So I wasn't necessarily excited about the idea because I didn't really feel like I was going to get that different of an experience, since I'm involved in the Latino community locally. But I was really impressed with Mexico. I was pleasantly surprised. There's so much culture. It's so beautiful. And Puebla is just an excellent place to be. Puebla is the only state in Mexico that celebrates Cinco de Mayo. For those of you guys that didn't know, right? Everybody thinks that Cinco de Mayo is an entire all of Mexico kind of celebration. No, we think that because they've commercialized Cinco de Mayo for us here. This is us with some of our students on the day that I was right before I was getting ready to leave. We went to have churros and, do we have tacos that day? Churros. It's food Christmas, y'all. If you like Mexican food at all,
It is really good.
it is the most amazing food ever. You can just eat all the time, anywhere, in the street, in the restaurant. It doesn't matter. The food is always good. My baby came back and was like, we told him beef was black chicken because he will only eat chicken. And he told me he only eats the black chicken in Mexico because it's just better there. So
We have so many of these culinary programs, so they churn out some really good chefs.
amazing. And so this is like the oldest library in Central America that's there in Puebla as well. We got a little tour of that and there. We also had, this arch just everywhere. That's back to the first one. So, and my family, we did not stay on campus. I brought my entire family with me. We stayed in San Andres de Cholula, and Cholula has two parts, there's San Andres and San Pedro. And we stayed in San Pedro. San Andres has another, it's a university area, really good, like little restaurants, a lot of cultural events. We stayed in a hotel that was right on the main square. There was playgrounds in the park, in Parque Central, where we stayed. My baby, they had like these double-decker trampolines for the kids to jump on for like 25 cents. They're not the safest things in the world like in the US. But my kids loved them, right? they were fantastic. So, it was just really good. So with the International Community Service Learning, in case you guys would have students that would be interested in traveling, it's kind of like the alternative spring break idea where you go and you do some service. In social work, we have a class where you have to do community service. So I really feel like it's important for us, especially with our students from such a privileged country like the US, that we do give back when we go abroad, and we kind of try to make that a habit. So what we're going to be doing when we do that, we're going to be doing events like the Disco Sopa, where you're going to work really hard, and I peeled like 300 potatoes that day.
I chopped up habaneros and jalapenos, and that food you saw there was delivered by the local food bank, and they had like just crate after crate of food, and we emptied one crate, they just brought us another one. I just stood there and chopped.
Yes.
And that food I'd never even seen before. And I said, what's this?
So we're going to be doing things like that. We have, we're going to be learning a little bit about the Aztec culture, talking about the indigenous cultures. Most of my exposure is in the Mayan culture, so it was kind of interesting to see the difference, within the Aztec indigenous kind of traditions. We're going to be going to different social service agencies. We're going to be working with children who are disabled in a Saturday program, playing games and things like that. We're probably going to be visiting a school. We are going to be we're going to a migrant center, as people are trying to migrate or immigrate, they travel up through Mexico, so they have safe houses in Mexico. We're going to be going to one of the safe houses to interview the people who are in their migration journey at that point. So the class is going to be, it's a social work class, but I feel like we get really blocked into checking off those boxes and saying, okay, well, it's social work, so we're not going to go there. However, the HEPC is going to be promoting this to business, and they're going to be promoting it, to the other universities as well, to, psychology or sociology, whoever, because whoever is involved in international learning, this exchange. Oh, the other thing is that we're going to be doing this with students. The group, you saw this, they have a group there called Anahuac, and I don't know what it stands for, but it's basically a volunteerism and social action group. And Pepe, who I was working with, is the director of this group. And so when I went to visit them the first time, they had a representative from every field in that university, and I traveled with them on their retreat, like their weekend retreat, where they were building rapport and getting to know each other. And like we went down to the grottos, like you guys have done like the word caverns and things like that. This was one of those experiences, except they gave me a helmet with a light on it, and they in a life vest. And like I wasn't probably 35 feet into the cave before I had to drop down and scooch my way under a rock, and then I ended up in a thing of water to here. It was cold. Right? So it was a real adventure. It was, a lot of fun. Those students came together like champions. I can't imagine our students ever doing what those students did, but they came together like champions, and they really did have like an amazing bond. So they do this kind of stuff. We're going to be hanging out with those students. We're going to be hanging out with those when we're doing our service, and so not only is this this is not just a spectator thing where we're going to be looking in at the culture, but our students are going to have the opportunity to build relationships with their counterparts in Mexico, people that are in their age cohort, people who are interested in doing those things.
Can I just stop you for 1 second. It looks like the pizza's here. So can we take a quick break and get some pizza? We do have some water and some Coke, I think, as well. I'm not sure.
Maybe just come back and do questions?
And then come bring it back in and we'll just take questions. Sound good?
Yeah, good.
Lights on, so you can see what we're doing.
Yay!
I need my notebook.
You want the drink also?
No, I'm fine. Is anybody logged on there?
No, I didn't see anyone. I don't think she advertised. Oh, you can have your seat back.
Right, so.
Any questions?
No, I'm having a hard time this year.
If we're gonna try to keep up with the demands, it's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with it. Yeah, well then I should start it as one-on-one, and then maybe we can phase into the classroom. I don't let this many people go, where I can financially support having all these classes have somebody. So I'm gonna have to work with David on if he has some additional funds that we can tap into, if he's gonna want this for his department. But that's a great idea. That's a great idea, yeah. They can only through HR, they can only work 20 hours. Oh, I have one job who has 1 hour of learning quality commitment. He's probably quadruple. And they're early. Like, I don't know if it's the beginning, right? Like, so they're in the fire right now, but they're all early.
If you want to. I'll just bring it here.
Does anybody have questions for our guests? Are we good? We're just enjoying the Domino's pizza? All right.
How many Shepherd students go for, two different courses, right?
No, we were together. She did the intervention piece of mine.
So I came to support Heidi. But this is the other things that were happening. So let me just go, can I talk to you guys while you're eating?
Yeah. Please do.
Because I still got lots more I want to say. So one of the reasons I wanted to go is because Megan Gibbons, who works at Glenville State College, or the University of Glenville State. Yeah, so she works out of Glenville, but she's kind of heading up the whole COIL. Have you guys heard about COIL? It's the Collaborative Online International Learning. So what COIL is just a way of coordinating instructors so that you can get an international experience without having to actually leave. And I wanted to get training on that. So the training she was doing, and I was set to do, I had met my partner Gina. I had met her previously when I went. So I wanted to go do the training in Anahuac with her, accessible. So they sent me, and I did my first week, I did a 3-day training, and then I sat in on Heidi's class and I taught with her the next following week. And that was all really a part of Heidi's course. So the International Community Service Learning, I just realized when Yen and Charles sent me in February that we were able to make this connection and make it happen. So I tried from February to May to run that 2-week course and like make it happen. And I started lots of fires and I skidded my wheels and I went like this, kind of like when you're in the snow, you know, when you get stuck in the snow and you just go, but you just can't get it to go. That's kind of where that class ended. So this year we're doing it with time and, you know, without all the hecticness. So, and we're gonna be, you know, able to have the luxury of promoting. So my course is a 2-week course. It's the International Community Service Learning. It's separate than what she did. Anahuac will not pay me for that course. I will get paid as an adjunct here. I am an adjunct here, but I will be paid just the adjunct salary here from Shepherd. However, the way that it works out is, you know, your flight and your accommodations are included in your students' fees. So that gets you there to be able to leave the course with them. I got a grant from the Higher Education Policy Commission that is going to be paying for my flight. So therefore the students will be able to pay a little less money and to be able to get the experience because, you know, we're about trying to make this accessible for them. The other thing with the COIL, and if any of you guys are interested in maybe incorporating online international learning, Megan Gibbons is going to be here
In the spring.
In February, and she's solid. She's really good. And she, what I'm doing with the International Community Service Learning course, Pepe and I are going to do a COIL in which our students do an exchange before my students go. So that these students, they're already getting to know each other, they're already having like a cultural interaction previous to getting to Mexico. So then when they're there working with people, they already kind of know, they have some comfort in their communication. Everybody at Anahuac speaks English. You have to have a certain level of English even to get into the program. So that allows our students who don't have the language background to be able to communicate. So I'm doing the COIL with Pepe previous to us leaving as kind of our pre-departure orientation. The other thing we're doing is I'm launching a new course this semester, not this semester, but the spring semester, that is going to be focused on global, it's like global social work, but we're entitling it something around the idea of human rights and social development. So it's giving this, you know, international perspective of how, you know, the local global connection, basically. And so within that, my partner Gina is teaching a course in Spanish. They are called Transcendentalism in the South. So she's dealing with human rights issues, but from a more faith-based or Christian perspective. So our students are going to do an exchange as part of my course and talk about human rights issues, talk about advocacy and how that looks on both sides of the border, and they're going to do a project together. And they can't obviously together, but kind of simultaneously, they're going to decide what issues they want to deal with, and they're going to go through it simultaneously in the 2 different places, and then talk about, you know, how did it come out, what was their experience like, how did people respond to that. So Pepe and Gina, because I keep talking about them, they're going to be here at the end of October, beginning of November. We're going to bring them in, and Gina's going to be doing some human rights workshops with us, and they're going to be available to do some guest lecturing and things. So if you think like the first week and a half of November that you would be interested in meeting them, you know, I just want to let you know that when you hear it come out later, that these are the people, these are the same people. If it's anything with the Anahuac, it'll be Pepe and Gina. And you know, they're going to be doing the workshops, they're going to be guest lecturing, and you know, working with me on this COIL thing.
I'm set up to do a COIL in the fall with an intro to psych class in the business department. So my intro to psych class is COILed with business right now. I didn't want him to go. So Lisa is very much wants to grow this international program. She is hardworking. She really English speaking. Yes, she went to school in Virginia. She's educated at a boarding school in Virginia through her younger years. I don't know where she went to college. I don't remember, but she went to, you know, so she knows both cultures. She's in Northern Virginia. Yeah, Northern College. She also went to middle school and high school here too as well. She's really down to earth. She's great The other app you want is WhatsApp, or your, what's that? Okay. See, I'm so such a techno guru.
Have you thought about putting a Spanish language component with it?
I would love to.
Because, and here's my thought, whenever I take students abroad, I always make them learn some basic phrases, even though everyone speaks English. It sends a huge message. I mean, we are known as being very ethnocentric. The joke is, if you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak 2, you're bilingual. If you speak 1, you're American. And so I think that it sends a great message. And if they're talking about increasing this international program, then my recommendation would be to put a small Spanish, even if it's just basic greetings in Spanish, or asking where are the toilets, but something, some language component, so that we're not sending English ethnocentric students over.
Actually, that's an excellent point, and I'm with you on that. I wanted to previously, when we used to travel to Guatemala previously, I had our students actually study Spanish for 4 hours in the morning, and then we did all our activities in the afternoon. We can't do that with this because we're packing it so tight. However, I give them kind of what I tell them is the quick and dirty Spanish, right? And these are the things, even before we go, that we begin talking about and practicing. I would like for them to be able to, do this, and we could put a Spanish teaching component because Anahuac has that, available to us. However, my fear is institutionally here, I don't want to tromp on people's toes. I don't know how, that would go over with the Spanish department and, people that are going to be needing to take their courses. So I haven't made it an official, but yeah, we do definitely push them to engage in the language as much as possible.
I was going to say, language learning is based on meaningful communication, and that's meaningful. And so you might encourage them to come back here and study even more.
Definitely, I would hope so.
Well, there are people, I mean, the students and maybe there's many people who do not know English on campus, like the cafeteria workers, and I had to have a little help in that department. And so it was
But
funny.
I learned. I mean,
I
I
did, I mean,
and she was like, okay, I'm going to order by myself.
Yeah, and
Right,
so
and so-
she would panic when
Yeah.
she would panic when I would come up to order, and she would give the one English speaking manager of the cafeteria, and I'd say, no, you sit back down, I got
We have
this.
another
She's
group
like,
coming in
"Oh,
now.
this is all
We
about
have it at
customer
1.
service."
So thank you guys so much. We have another class coming in now, so I didn't want to overlap too hard.
No,
If you want to hear more, come back tomorrow at 12:30.